gas from natural gas.
Which some of you may or may not be familiar with. My talk is going to be primarily about a subject of nursing and
interrupt her at any time during her presentation, she would do the same pattern. If so, the same goes so what?
than it was anticipated a year ago. It is a crisis that is particularly in the hospital system of the healthcare delivery system. Being a nurse is an awesome responsibility. It has accountabilities and responsibilities not only to the patient, to the family.
It took 6 months for detectives to infiltrate the theft ring, but finally they learned who was stealing the Brockway pallets.
The carriers was the main area that we dealt in. That's the people that ship the pallets. I can't comment as to who that is at this time. Like I said, there's an investigation currently by the Justice Department into it.
Investigators say payoffs in marked money were recorded on audio and videotape, and one of those involved in the theft and sale of stolen pallets is alleged to be Glenn McClendon, owner of McClendon Truck Lines. McClendon's trucking firm had a large transportation contract with Brockway. Investigative sources say McClendon was paid for stolen pallets on numerous occasions. TV 12 News has learned that McClendon is the subject of a federal investigation because of the pallet thefts. U.S. Attorney Barry Teague refused to comment on the case when we asked him today about the status of the investigation. Other unnamed persons are also reportedly under state and federal investigation for pallet thefts from Brockway. Brockway plant manager Meredith Keller says there have been some changes in the way pallet inventories are handled since the end of the undercover operation.
I guess the biggest change that we notice on the plant level is the customer complaints have almost stopped completely, that they were not getting proper credit for their pallets.
Investigators and industry sources say there are indications that pallet thefts occurred in 7 southeastern states, and it is unknown how much money may have been lost by Brockway and other companies victimized by theft rings. Industry sources say thefts like the ones at the Brockway Company eventually lead to higher prices for consumer goods. This is Norman Lumpkin, WSFA TV News reporting.
Health officials say they don't know where the hazardous chemical came from or who supplied it, but they say the chemical used as a soil and feed fumigant for weeds must be removed.
A material known as chloropicrin, and like we say, the material should be out within the next few days and removed to a secure site for permanent disposal.
Do you perhaps think you may find some other chemicals in the dump site?
Hopefully not. We hope this is the extent of the problem and that the site will be closed out hopefully by the end of the week.
This afternoon, workers began removing the chemical. Cox says the cleanup operation hopefully will be completed by week's end, and he repeated that the chemicals recently found posed no immediate threat to residents living in the area surrounding the dump site. The Thompson-Hayward Chemical Company first reported the chemical dump to state health officials and is responsible for cleaning up the property and is paying for the entire operation. Kim Davis, WSFA TV News.
The committee voted on 3 different unearmarking proposals. All the bills would have allowed Alabamians to vote on whether to remove those limitations that prescribe where 88% of the state's revenues will be spent. Montgomery Senator Bishop Barron offered a 1.5-page substitute that would do what the governor requested in his State of the State address. In Barron's words, it would unearmark everything from the ceiling down, with virtually no exceptions. That bill failed by a vote of 12-7. Other bills would have allowed exceptions for money made at the state docks in Mobile and some money earmarked for cities and counties. Senator Larry Keener from Gadsden urged senators to vote for the bill, reminding senators they were not deciding whether to unearmark, but to allow the people to decide. He said the issue won't go away until citizens have the final word. The bill's sponsor, Finest St. John from Coleman, told his colleagues that if they vote against the measure, they're placing their own judgment above that of all the people in the state. Some opponents to unearmarking said they were elected to represent those people and to vote their convictions. The bill finally died on a 15-4 vote. Governor Fob James called the vote a victory for special interest groups and a loss for the taxpayers of Alabama. He called it politics as usual and said the unearmarking issue is not dead but will return again and again. Lisa Nielsen, WSFA TV News at the Capitol.
Enough money to handle this.
Ways and Means Chairman Walter Owens authored the package of bills, but the House didn't agree with his entire package. Owens' bill to make local school boards pick up the retirement costs for professional teachers failed, but his next bill to hang on to $12 million overpaid to the teachers' retirement system this year met strong opposition, forcing Owens' allies to help debate the bill and swing enough votes around to get the bill through. Speaker Joe McCorkadale relinquished his chair long enough to help Owens convince the members of the House that saving the overpaid $12 million to help fund retirement next year would be a better idea than Tuscaloosa's Roy Johnson's idea to use the $12 million to help defray proration this year. By a 7-vote margin, the Owens proposal passed. Both of these bills tie into the total figures of the education budget, and since Owens had written his budget in the hope that the previous 2 bills would pass, he opted to hold off on debating the education budget until he could refigure the numbers so his totals would balance with the expected revenues next year. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News at the Capitol.
95, 96.
Reserve these trips that the state pays for the people who ground route about. Okay. Well, I was one of those that made the trip last year. These areas in the budget do not furnish us. Mr. Sassy moved with adjourn, second by Mr. Keys. All in favor, let me know, say aye. Next year in South Alabama, the year after, because all 3 of them working on the same basis. I was one of those that made the trip last year. I found it very informative, and I received a lot of information. I know you are.
My family's enjoyed it, and I think whatever job we're in, you're supposed to enjoy it. I wasn't at UCLA.
What stopped it from being fun?
Well, I call them distracting things. And if you pinpoint me on distractions, there were a lot of different areas. One, there's no doubt the media attention from TV, radio, news media is much greater there than I'd ever encountered, and really I felt we were having great years, 28-4 the first year conference champs, 24-5 second year conference champs. But every time we lost, it was a crisis to 3 or 4 media people. Recruiting. We recruited 10 players while I was there, 7 of them high school All-Americans, 1 junior college All-American. But our recruiting was bad, according to 1 or 2. They just kept the turmoil all the time. It took the fun away from it. And it was a bad financial job, and when the Birmingham job came up, it was just so much better. I'd been offered other jobs while I was there, but the Birmingham was a little special, and it was back close to Memphis where we'd loved the 4 years there, and so all those things tied together made me make the move.
Larry?
Gene, didn't you also have the feeling that some very influential members among UCLA boosters and supporters were exerting inordinate pressure on you, in addition to the pressure in the media?
Larry, there's no doubt there's 1 or 2 boosters, 2 I can think of specifically around that program, that grew to dislike me very quickly for a lot of reasons. Those reasons may be brought out someday. Not today on this TV show, but...
oh, come on, Coach.
We can do better than that.
Really, I'm sure there were probably more than 2. I only know of a couple, really.
Was it personal criticism of you? Was it professional criticism of you as a coach? It could be any number of things. And was this criticism, did it exist for Coach Cunningham and Coach Brown? Were you the first to taste something which was really quite difficult?
I can't speak for Gary Cunningham. He was part of the family, as I've called it, and I don't really think Gary went through that same type of criticism. Larry Brown, I have a feeling, had a little different role and a little different feel. I was the first to follow Wooden. I made some serious mistakes, hard-headed mistakes, perhaps.
Such as?
Well, not catering to a person or 2 that was a big booster around the program. And you make 1 or 2, if they're powerful enough, they come at you pretty good in collegiate coaching.
Well, what kind of booster do Coach? He doesn't pay your salary. He doesn't have any official influence over the program.
Well, if he's got a real close friend with the media and you lose a 1-point game, he can stir it for a while.
And this was happening?
I felt so. I can't prove that. I feel the huge majority of the media people in L.A. are real professionals, really fair. The people that covered us on a day-to-day basis, hey, they were fair. They were professional. People I never saw, 3 or 4 of them, columnists maybe out in San Bernardino, they were able, there were 3 or 4, in my opinion, that were able to keep a lot of things swirling. One television commentator that every time, we only lost 9 in 2 years, but it had its effect. It probably shouldn't have. I don't feel I was thin-skinned, since we're on that. I don't know how we got on that, but it's been said in an article out of L.A., just Wooden said I was thin-skinned or so, insinuated. I don't think I was. I don't think I'm any more thin-skinned than Knight or Digger or anybody that's been in a prominent... But when you're winning big and recruiting big, and there's a nut or 2 or 3, in my opinion, able to keep that thing swirling, it's just a little unusual. I call them distractions.
You
said money. It's the outside money you did not get. Is that correct?
Well, that was a part of it. There's no doubt the financial implications of that job were not as good as I had at Memphis State even. Now, when J.D. Morgan was recruiting me to take that job, he had no idea that my camps wouldn't draw anybody.
John Wooden had a camp?
Oh, yeah. He had 8 weeks of camp.
And that's where everybody went.
That's right, which if I sent my son to his camp, I mean...
Now, how much money did that cost you? I'm not asking for your salary.
I think many people in the camp business today are, if you're, let's say you're running 5 weeks, you may earn $25,000 to $40,000, depending on how many, let's say you've got a space where you can house 250 kids. Of course, for my camps in Birmingham, we only house about 100 kids a week. So everything is different from that standpoint.
Going to Birmingham, Coach, obviously you didn't have an alumni problem since you were starting the team. It was the ideal situation.
Well, Larry, in my mind, I've never had an alumni problem. Now, UCLA, I've admitted, I know a couple that were after me. I know one that would have probably bought March. I'm assuming he got the same type thing. Cliff Ellis down at South Alabama has the same type thing. All the ACC coaches have it. 3 or 4 of the Big Ten, 4 or 5 of the Big 8. I'd say there are 30, 40, 50 major collegiate basketball coaches got these things, plus shoe contracts.
Sounds like you ought to raise your son to be a coach instead of a player. Larry?
Aren't you setting up a situation at South Alabama and Lee at not South Alabama, but there is a program at South Alabama, UAB, your school, South Florida, where if this type of money is being poured into the program, in salaries and through outside interest, television and so forth, that these people are going to expect the same kind of success that was expected, maybe not on the level of UCLA, but very close to it. You're talking about big money.
Well, the base salaries in most of these places.
But it's not the school, it's the schools that are paying the base salaries.
And they're not all that big.
That's
they're
right.
lower
It's the
than
boosters
deans.
that are putting in the extra dollars, the ones that can exert the pressure.
The people that are putting in the extra dollars are your Coca-Cola, Budweiser, your car dealer, your bank, your sponsors, and so forth.
Well, they expect you to win, too.
No doubt. They like for you to win. But,
and cover.
Well, that's right. I don't know about that. But,
well, you better.
But I would say this. I don't think the pressure, they talk about pressure. I never felt any more pressure at UCLA than I did at Valparaiso.
That's why you're in the game
for 6 years. I loved it there. At UAB, a member of the Sun Belt Conference, hey, once you hit a certain level in collegiate coaching, and there's several hit it, you don't really, sure we got pressure, but you don't worry about necessarily being fired. When you think of pressure, many people think, hey, that coach's going to get fired. And or a lot of people think that. I don't. You have your contract written well enough that if you get fired, you go to Palm Springs for a year or two, and then you worry about what you're going to do. I think most coaches do at this stage. And now, I don't know if this is good or bad, but it's happening.
You're talking about your level of success.
Well, I think people that have been around 10, 12 years and have proven they can win at a collegiate level and run honest programs and work hard, yes. I think most of them have 4, 5, 6-year contracts that maybe revolve.
Gene, do you believe that all these conferences, including yours, should get an automatic bid to the NCAA tournament? There seems to be certain coaches are upset, mainly coaches that finished 5th and 6th in the Big Ten, seems to me are upset they're not in the NCAA tournament. Do you think your conference and other conferences, not at the same level as the Big Ten as far as being in business for 40 years, do you think you should have an automatic bid, or is that going to change?
Bino, I think the way the NCAA conference is structured now is good. I think our league, I think the Sun Belt Conference definitely deserves a
I expect
bid.
You to say that,
yeah,
but
just like the Big Ten. But I read what Bob Knight said the other day, and I kind of like what he said. I'm not sure that there'd be anything wrong. I think had there not been an automatic bid this year, I think our league might have had 3 instead of 2. South Alabama was a big-time team with a 23-5 record. They go and beat Ohio State. There's no doubt we had a great year. There's no doubt Virginia Commonwealth had a great year. So I think whether the NCAA council or the committee that does this, I don't know who makes this decision, keeps it the way it is, which I don't think there's anything wrong necessarily the way it is, or whether they should restructure it and say no automatic bids. We go by those computers. We go by strength of schedule. Hey, I think the Sun Belt Conference is here, so I get my licks in for that conference because Dick Bubas is doing a great job.
What it comes down to is the Big Ten thinks that all 9 of the 10 teams should go except Northwestern.
Well, they can't.
Well, that's what it's all about.
They can't justify a 4th-place team in the Big Ten with a 16-10 record, or they can't justify.
Well, Minnesota cried.
Would you have said this when you were in the Big Ten?
Yes, sir. I definitely would. You can't.
Coach, just to change it a little bit, we seem to be in this boom. Where do you get your players to compete on this level, coming from nowhere? Is there an endless new supply of basketball players?
There's more great high school basketball players in this country today than there was 10 years ago or 20 years ago. The high school coaches, the junior high coaches, they're doing a phenomenal job. You take our team. We've got 14 players on scholarship, 12 of them right around the Birmingham area. If we could recruit Birmingham, which we're struggling for, we could be a top 20 team. I'd say
just
3 out of 5.
That's
right. That's right. 3 out of 5 years. You're not going to make it every year. You get an injury or an academic casualty or something. But there's so many good players, just like the New York area. That probably if 3 or 4 of the New York area college could keep all of them at home, And they'd be top. L.A., they're just phenomenal players out there.
But top 20 isn't the operative number anymore. This is what Dino was referring to, I think, to some extent. It's 48. 48 teams are going to the NCAA tournament, and that rubs against the grain of a lot of people who like to think of quality being a...
Air traffic controllers first picketed Danley Field last month. The members of the group work the radar room at Maxwell and operate the control tower at Danley Field. Local President C.J. Favre says they're asking for a shorter work week, an increase in salary, and improved retirement benefits. He asked the board for 3 picket days this month on the 13th, 16th, and 17th. Favre originally asked that more picketers be allowed to walk outside the terminal, that their wives be able to pass out literature to the public, and that additional pickets be able to stand by the airport entrance. The board had previously established rules governing picketers, which provided that only 2 be allowed on the sidewalk in front of the terminal and nowhere else. The board voted to uphold the previous rule and allow the group to picket on the days asked for. In other business, Airport Director Ken Mews says Pinehurst Airline, a freight carrier which is interested in providing service in the Montgomery area, has decided to table whether it will go back into the passenger business. At one time, Pinehurst officials had planned to locate here in Montgomery sometime this spring. Cassandra Taylor, WSFA TV News.
The greens will react much differently to a ball hit into them. I don't know whether you're familiar with what I'm going to say, but when you overseed a green with Bermuda with ryegrass, a lot of times the ball will skip the first bounce because it has such a tight underturf. Bent will bite in the first bounce. And this year with the new greens, they're going to be very soft, and they're going to have a lot of balls being pulled back off the slopes with a lot of spin on them. That's going to be one difference. So the green characteristics of how they play will be a little bit different. But the 2 changes they made on the golf course, they lengthened the first hole 12 yards, which is going to bring the bunker on the first hole into play. And they lengthened the 8th hole 20 yards, which effectively is going to narrow that fairway from about 50 yards to about 30 yards because of a bunker that's in play. So the golf course, from those 2 standpoints, should play a little bit more difficult.
Before the hearing began, Director of Montgomery's bus system, Paul Queen, made a special public presentation describing the need for the rate increase and how it will help the bus system break even. Queen says the number 1 reason for the increase is the rising cost of fuel. His presentation came in package form that would see bus fares go up 10 cents, including those for senior citizens, the handicapped, and school children. Weekly passes are set for a $1 increase. The second part of the package is the elimination of some bus routes like South Lawn and Veterans Hospital. After the presentation, members of the community in attendance were given an opportunity to ask questions and give suggestions. Most people didn't object to the fare increase. Their main concern is the elimination of bus routes. The council took no action on the proposed rate increase or route change. All public comments and recommendations will be given to the council's Transportation Committee for further review and recommendations. Reporting from City Hall, Cassandra Taylor, WSFA TV News.
You want to take another one?
No, sure.
Well, I was there for 3 days. The golf course is in nice shape. Little conversation about the greens over there. They're going to be fine. They're going to be very quick. I think scores are going to probably go up at Augusta. Myself, I worked and did some things with my swing that I was very pleased with, and I hit the ball very well while I was there. I made some changes in my, in my putting, and hopefully I can take some of the inconsistency out of it that I've had. Last year, this time, I was just plain putting poorly. This year, I'm having one good day and then one bad day, one good day and one bad day, and I think I'd rather be that way because I know that I have the, I know that I can make something. It's just I got to take the inconsistency out of it. So I made a few changes to hopefully take that out, and all the things that have happened this spring, I think I've shadow boxed enough. Excuse me, I got some cracker caught here in my throat, and shadow boxed enough. It's about time to start playing. Get some scores on the board.
close-up shot. Yes, sir.
Awards were given for two different contests, a writing contest on the theme of mainstreaming disabled students in community schools, and the poster contest on hiring the handicapped. Governor James made a short address before handing out the certificates of merit. The governor told the winners they had written on a very appropriate subject. The winners now go on to compete in the national contests. Jane Matheson, WSFA TV News.
Teacher, if he or she is present, for presentations and pictures. Dr. Bell Jordan. Each year since the first.
I'm sure in your themes you will have some solutions, and I may be calling you to get you to draft some legislation for me, and then more important than that, I may be calling on you to help me get the legislation through the legislature, because I'm sure with the luck I'm having that you could be a major factor in putting that into law. So thank you very much.
Smiling and happy, and it's a good occasion to announce that Hammer Hill's Southern Forest Products Division is putting in a new sawmill, Capital Investment Products Division. Judge Hardy McCollum, where's the judge? The judge, Mr. Tom throughout the state. And we have with us Mr. J.S. Stolley, the Senior Vice President of Hammer Mill, and Mr. Billy Bond.
The House was quick to adopt Representative Jack Biddle's bill that he says would, for the first time in the state's history, eliminate a state sales tax. Biddle had three estimates on how much the state would lose because of this bill, ranging from almost $5 million to $9 million. The House was in favor of the bill since Biddle had just minutes before convinced the House to impose a sales tax on the casual sales of cars, trucks, mobile homes, and so forth. This bill reportedly will bring in just more than $5 million and possibly more to make up for the tax revenues lost because of the drug exemption bill. The House also voted to reduce the juvenile age from 18 to 16. Morgan County's Bob Patton sponsored the bill, which he says will put any youth 16 years old or older in adult court for any felony crime. A parade of representatives quizzed Patton for more than an hour about the ramifications of his bill. Patton contends the bill has provisions to treat a youth between 16 and 18 as a juvenile should the court decide the crime doesn't warrant adult court treatment. Senator Dewey White of Birmingham is handling the identical bill in the Senate. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News in the House of Representatives.
At this time, we would offer that exhibit.
That'll be marked as commission exhibit time, schedule, exhibit time.
Not asking for any additional increase than what please use but it had not. It was both in the printed testimony as filed and stated verbally.
In the petition that Mr. Duke is a customer of Alabama Gas.
In In the 1970 census, blacks made up 33% of the total city population. The 1980 census shows a 6% increase. Mayor Farmer contests this figure, saying the black population should be approximately 35% of the city's total. He bases the statement on the outcome of a census conducted by the city's Planning and Development Office, which worked closely with local census officials.
When we got through, we thought our preliminary final was going to be exactly what the final was. Now they've come back and says that's not so, that we've got more people than we had in the preliminary final. And all I've asked our staff to do is to find those people or either say they're not there, one or the other, and just match it up correctly.
The mayor hopes the city will finish checking the federal census figures within a week. He says he'll wait and see if there are any discrepancies before taking further action. Cassandra Taylor, WSFA TV News.
December 1st, 1980, 18-year-old Terry Garthman is arrested and charged with robbery of this convenience store. March, Garthman is sentenced to 3 months in the Montgomery County Jail on a reduced charge of theft in the 3rd degree. 3 days later, on March 19, 1981, Garthman is released by order of the federal courts as part of the program to reduce overcrowding at the county jail. Garthman is one of 6 inmates released early. Sunday, April 4, 1981, Terry Garthman is arrested and charged with robbing and kidnapping the clerk at this gas station. Garthman is now in the Montgomery County Jail under $20,000 bond. Some law enforcement officials say the Garthman case is an example of what can and will continue to happen unless a solution is found for the county and state prisoners' overcrowding problems. This is Norman Lumpkin, WSFA TV News reporting.
Like most kids his age, Ray Spires liked bicycles. Well, 4 months ago, he became obsessed with racing them, and his record is phenomenal. Ray has won 9 of the 10 races that he has entered. He remembers his first race back in December as if it were yesterday.
You go 3 motos on the race. I had first, the second 2 races, I beat the Alabama state champion at that time. And on the very last race, I got too nervous and slid out and had to take second overall.
You still get nervous, huh?
Yes, sir.
Ray's finest hour came 2 weeks ago in Memphis, Tennessee, when he won his age group in the War of the Stars competition, riding this $571 bike. His success there earned him a local sponsor, Cloverland Schwinn. A new bike is on order, and more races are ahead. Just how far is this 15-year-old planning to go?
Well, I can go all the way if I'm ready to, I can go.
Dave Cody, WSFA TV Sports.
Leading the opposition to the local option bill is Senator Big Ed Robertson from Northport. The bill would allow municipalities in dry counties to permit liquor sales, but would also allow cities in wet counties to prohibit the sale of alcohol. The Senate passed several amendments to the bill, one prohibiting alcohol sales on Sundays, one disallowing municipalities with fewer than 6,000 citizens from having the option. Finally, the bill came up for a vote and failed 11-20. Then Robertson moved to reconsider the bill. Once a bill has been reconsidered, the Senate cannot bring it up again. So if Robertson got the Senate to defeat the bill twice, it would be killed for the rest of the session. But as supporters for the bill rallied, Robertson began a filibuster on the motion to reconsider. He spoke for several hours on the evils of alcohol. Lisa Nielsen, WSFA TV News at the Capitol.
Project Energy Care identifies the low-income, elderly, and disabled Alabamians who are in need of energy assistance but have been overlooked by other groups. The Alabama Caucus on Black Aged received the grant in February and so far has surveyed 150 homes in 6 counties surrounding Montgomery.
We do not offer any financial help, but we do render technical assistance. We direct them to the proper sources. We take the application of the person, and we do not even try to say that this person is eligible or not eligible. We gather this information and send it into Washington.
Besides looking for those who exhibit the greatest need for assistance, Project Energy Care employs the elderly to survey the homes. Energy Care also reaches the public through churches and group meetings. Jane Matheson, WSFA TV News.
The break occurred here, adjacent to the intake structure. 400 feet of the dike collapsed. When that happened, water from the pond, which is at a level 100 feet higher than the water in the downstream canal, rushed through, washing away that portion of the dike. The water flooded the banks of the canal and caused boats tied to docks to loosen and float on down the river. Alabama Power Company officials say the break occurred because of faulty construction. There's still litigation pending against the original contractor of the dam, so power company officials don't want to talk about what caused the breach. They do say that another such collapse of the dam is unlikely now, since they've installed elaborate monitoring devices that will alert plant supervisors in case of any water leakage. Is there any chance that something like that could happen again?
There's always that chance, but the company's taken every precaution in the reconstruction to assure that it does not happen again.
Have you had any leaks lately that anybody has seen and, been able to stop?
No, not since the reconstruction has been completed. Of course, you always have a small amount of seepage through any embankment, but it's none above what was expected.
Power company officials say hydroelectric power from various dams in the state provided 14% of the energy generated in 1980. They say hydro plants are used mostly during peak periods instead of cranking up steam-generated plants. They say the hydro plants produce the energy quicker and it's more cost-effective. Gina Gregory, WSFA TV News.
8 news cameras like you use out, portable, whatever you call them. And you had to just sort of shove your way through. And we can tag outside the outer garment where we would know who you are when you're entering. And while inside the on these demonstrations, we want to try to serve for better. Not going to interfere with any of your job of gas.
Melba Till Allen believes 3 is her lucky number. She was born on the 3rd month, 3rd day in 1933, is the 3rd child in a family of 10, and served 3 terms in public office. On November 3rd, Mrs. Allen reported to the Montgomery County Jail to serve a 3-year reduced jail sentence, and 23 days later, she was transferred to the Seton Haven retirement home. Mrs. Allen says she's feeling fine, spending her days working as a bookkeeper and doing what she enjoys most, painting, writing poetry, and working on the book she's titled No Room at the Top. She also enjoys baking homemade biscuits, her specialty. During the entire 2 years leading up to her sentencing, Mrs. Allen says she's always rolled with the punches. The 48-year-old former state treasurer says she's not bitter about the trial or going to jail. Mrs. Allen says she even smiled when the mugshot photograph was taken. Mrs. Allen knows people have criticized her for receiving a reduced jail term and being transferred shortly after going to the county jail, but she says she received no special treatment.
It has been totally exploited. Political enemies have played this up. If the truth, had it not been for the exploitation, in my humble opinion, I would not even been found guilty.
Mrs. Allen talked mainly about her book. She says when it's released, the truth about everything will be unveiled, but she still wouldn't call any names.
I am not going to give the names through the media. If you want to know the names, you're going to have to read my book. When it gets down to some very interesting details, you're just going to have to learn about it in the book.
And in about 3.5 weeks, Mrs. Allen will be released from Seton Haven, where she says she's made lots of friends, many of whom will hate to see her go. Kim Davis, WSFA TV News.
'Cause, 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 'cause
Just more than a week ago, 5 oil companies agreed to pay Alabama almost $450 million for the right to look for oil in the waters off the coast of Mobile. Senator Callahan has just become the latest in a number of legislators and Governor James to make a suggestion on how the money should be spent. But Callahan is most concerned with the governor's plan to spend more than $100 million on mental health and prison construction projects, as well as highway and bridge improvements.
Basically, the governor and others are advocating a spend now, worry later approach for using this money.
Callahan says the state already has plenty junior colleges, state parks, and highways. Callahan wants to take about 50 of the $450 million and begin construction for mental health and prisons in order to satisfy the court-ordered improvements. But the remaining $400 million Callahan wants to invest, perhaps in 20-year U.S. Treasury notes.
At today's investment rate, this move would provide the state with a steady income of more than $53 million a year. And this would amount to more than $1 billion over the life of the original investment period.
To realize Callahan's proposal would involve introducing a bill creating an investment authority made up of elected officials and expert money managers. Callahan has scheduled 8 statewide news conferences hoping to get local support and pressure on other legislators to push his bill through. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News at the Capitol.
This 25-year-old Jeff Davis High School, Samford, and University of Alabama product has come a long way since joining the women's tennis tour in 1978. First, she picked up a coach and one of the best, Pancho Segura. Next came matches with Sue Barker, Wendy Turnbull, and Tracy Austin. 4 months ago, Nancy Harris's name was placed on the world's tentative list. She needs but one more international win to receive an even higher ranking by the World Tennis Association. That will have to wait.
I was invited to play in the Italian and then to follow on in the French and later at Wimbledon. And I'd like to take this time to learn how to train properly, do some knotless training, which I've never done before. And so I think I'm going to stay here for about 6 weeks and visit with my folks and then get back on the road again.
While at home, Nancy has acquired the services of Montgomery Athletic Club fitness director Marcia Mizell, a member of the Lake Placid Olympics medical staff and a Nautilus expert.
She increases her strength, she will increase her power because the formula for power is strength over time. Well, she works on the court to reduce the time it takes her to perform each movement, and she works in here to increase the strength. Therefore, she has improvement in power. That should improve her game.
Nancy's training includes 3 visits to the athletic club a week and 4 or 5 hours of tennis a day.
I'd like to reach my potential as an athlete and certainly as a tennis player, and I'm really enjoying what I'm doing, and I hope that I can continue doing and continue to play.
Dave Cody, WSFA TV Sports.
What you say that I don't say?
You don't know what I'm doing, do you?
Yes, sir.
Huh?
population, it's a bad, it's getting hard to just put food on the table. I smoke about it.
We selected this route because it will touch 3 state capitals, Montgomery, Cahaba, and Tuscaloosa, and also it'll be very close to the actual 150-mile distance.
Several student speakers voiced their opinions on various university policies. One student says she opposed women having to sign in to visit other women's dorms. Another student expressed concern regarding what he termed outdated fraternity and organization rules. The student government president tried to keep the topics on day-to-day university problems, but the student determination to keep ASU separate from other institutions eventually prevailed. But there were no unanimous opinions. One student speaking at the podium was loudly booed by the audience. After about a half hour, several student leaders retired to write out the students' proposals to present to the university administration. Jane Matheson, WSFA TV News.
Several weeks ago, County Health Officer Dr. Mary Dura told the City Council that the Health Department needed more money in order to start up the mosquito control program. Neither the city nor county came up with any money. So now the County Health Department has decided to lay off 25% of their staff. That's 14 of the 56 employees, with the money saved from their salaries going to finance all of this year's mosquito control program. Dr. Dura says even with the layoffs, services offered by the department won't be reduced. Shortly after the decision was made to cut back employees, 4 new employees were hired to run the larva-siding trucks in the mosquito division. That operation was able to get underway as scheduled, and the crew has been spraying diesel fuel on stagnant drainage ditches since April 1st. The second phase of mosquito control is expected to start in a few weeks. Cassandra Taylor, WSFA TV News.
Jennings claims as a result of his unlawful arrest and imprisonment, he suffered much physical and mental pain and anguish, loss of freedom, embarrassment, and loss of income. The suit claims the defendants maliciously and without probable cause arrested Jennings. Corporal D.H. Carmichael, one of the defendants named in the suit, signed the warrants for Jennings' arrest. Jennings was charged with conspiracy to bribe a public servant or police officer and for stealing more than $900 from Herman Robertson, a local car dealer. Court records show that Carmichael testified that Jennings offered him $5,000 not to testify in the case. Carmichael also told the jury that Robertson himself joined Jennings in trying to bribe him, but Jennings was acquitted on both robbery and bribery charges. In his reaction to the suit, Police Chief Charles Swindle said the bribery case they had against Jennings was a good one and still is. Gina Gregory, WSFA TV News.
NASA said everything else appeared ready until controllers tried to load the backup computer with information from the 4 primary computers. Then the warning lights came on.
At the instant the problem happened, the crew got an error signal in the cockpit. They also got a little message on the television screen. The DPS people at the Cape got it. I got it. Randy got it.
A problem like this makes my console look like a Christmas tree.
Computer expert Randy Stone and NASA's flight director Neil Hutchinson said they'd never before seen such a problem occur.
Unfortunately, this one kind of came at a bad time, but you know, I have to say again that we think that this system works like a charm, and we've seen it in thousands and thousands of hours of runs.
NASA put more than 50 experts to work on the computers, dumping so-called software programs to search for